The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Union sparkled with floating lights and glowing banners. Species from across the stars sat in high seats, speaking in dozens of tongues. The room was filled with tension and laughter. At the center stood Queen Zalira of the Tharnax Empire. She was 8 feet tall, her skin dark and armored like obsidian stone. Her eyes glowed blue, and her crown floated slightly above her head. Made from living crystal, she was known across galaxies as a warrior, a conqueror and a ruler who feared no one. Next to her stood a much smaller figure, a human diplomat. His name was Theo Marcus, and he looked almost silly in his plain suit and nervous smile. He wasn't a soldier, not a prince, not even a scientist. He was simply a biologist from Earth, selected for a peaceful cultural exchange. The council's topic today was serious, cross-species diplomacy, but someone from the back shouted, "What about breeding with humans?" The room erupted in mocking laughter. Queen Zalira turned slowly, her eyes narrowing at Theo. Her voice echoed through the chamber, sharp and proud. "Breed with a human," she said, raising a brow. "I would sooner mate with a rock." More laughter followed, some species clapping their tentacles or stomping their claws. The queen looked at Theo as if expecting him to break down in shame, but he didn't. Theo smiled politely, then stepped forward. His voice was calm but clear. "You've never tried," he said simply. The laughter stopped. Even Zalira blinked in surprise. She tilted her head, unsure whether it was sarcasm, confidence, or something else. A few council members leaned in, sensing something unusual. One elder from the Avatar species leaned toward his mic. "Perhaps a cultural exchange experiment," he said with a smirk. "A symbolic pairing, nothing serious." Of course, another voice joined in. "Yes, let us see what comes of placing one human among the mighty Tharnax." Queen Zalira's pride burned. She hated the idea of being mocked or challenged, so she said coldly, "Fine, send us your best human. We'll keep him in one of our labs." Theo raised his hand, surprising everyone. "I volunteer," he said. Zalira stared at him, confused. "You?" "I'm not the best," Theo said, "but I'm willing." And just like that, the assembly sealed the agreement. A single human would stay with the Tharnax Empire for one cycle. No one expected anything, not even the Tharnax. They thought it was a joke, a way to laugh at humanity's weakness, a way to show how different they really were. But Queen Zalira couldn't stop thinking about that moment. "You've never tried." Why did it echo in her mind? Why did she see his face when she closed her eyes that night? He was soft, small, and ordinary. But something about him felt different. The Tharnax were warriors, always proving strength through dominance. But Theo didn't try to prove anything. He had simply smiled and offered himself like it meant something. 3 days later, Theo arrived at the Tharnax capital. He stood alone, holding a small bag and looking up at the towering black towers. No guards met him. No parades welcomed him. He was not important, just part of the joke. But Zalira watched him from her throne screen. She zoomed in on his face, saw how he looked up at her city with wonder, not fear. He didn't flinch when a warrior shouted at him. He simply nodded and kept walking. "Strange little creature," she muttered. And then, for the first time in her long reign, Queen Zalira laughed, not out of mockery, but out of curiosity. This joke, she thought, might become interesting. And far in the sky, hidden among the stars, a silent energy stirred. Something ancient, something forgotten, something that had waited for a very long time. The galaxy had no idea what was coming, but it started here with one human, and one queen who laughed too soon. Theo Marcus was alone. The black stone city of Tharnax Prime rose around him like sharp teeth. The air was heavy, not with heat, but with silence. Everyone watched him, but no one spoke to him. The Tharnax were not used to humans, and they didn't like weakness to them. Theo looked like a joke with soft skin, a short body, and no weapons. But Theo walked calmly through the giant gates of the Queen's fortress, carrying nothing but a scanner, a datapad, and his quiet curiosity. He was assigned a small room deep inside the citadel. No windows, cold floor, glowing walls pulsing with blue energy. There was no welcome message, no translator AI, just a blinking light that meant stay. But Theo didn't complain. Instead, he sat, unpacked his things, and began recording notes. He spoke softly into his recorder. Day 1. Tharnax Prime. The gravity is 1.3 Earth norm. Air is breathable but thick. Locals avoid contact. But their stares show deep suspicion. He paused, then added with a small smile. Queen Zelira hasn't killed me yet, so I suppose that's a good start. Meanwhile, in the royal throne chamber above, Queen Zelira watched. She stood before a holographic wall showing Theo's movements in real time. Her advisors whispered behind her, "Why is he here? God, this is foolish. He's just a human." But Zelira said nothing. She kept watching, not because she cared, but because something inside her was unsettled. She had seen fear in countless species, but Theo showed none. He wasn't brave, just peaceful. That night, the queen ordered something strange. She commanded that no one was to disturb Theo. No tests, no games, no threats, she told her warriors. Let's see how long the little one lasts. Days passed. Theo wandered the fortress during allowed hours. He observed Tharnak soldiers training in massive halls with gravity shifts. He studied their bone structure through open medical tanks. He even waved at a group of hatchlings who hissed back but didn't run. Every night he returned to his room and wrote in his digital log. He never insulted the Tharnaks, never tried to fight them. He only observed, learned, and respected. One afternoon, as Theo was walking through the northern sector, he heard a loud crack, a sound like stone breaking. He rushed toward it without thinking. A Tharnak's child had fallen into a maintenance shaft. No guards were nearby, only engineers too large to enter. Without asking permission, Theo dropped his tools and crawled inside. The passage was narrow and dark, but he kept moving. He reached the child, who was pinned under a shifting metal plate. Theo grunted, pushed with all his strength. His arms trembled, his lungs burned, but inch by inch, he moved the plate. Finally, the child slipped out and crawled free. Theo followed, coughing, covered in soot. When he emerged, he saw a dozen Tharnak's warriors staring at him. Their claws were ready, but their faces showed confusion. A human had saved one of their own. The news reached the queen within minutes. Her face showed no emotion, but her voice was colder than ice. "Bring him to me." Theo stood before her for the first time. She sat high on her throne, the room lit with red glow and humming energy. Her guards surrounded him, ready to strike. But the queen raised her hand. She stared at him silently, then asked, "Why did you risk your life for a Tharnak's child?" Theo looked up, calm. "Because he was in pain," he said, "and I was there." Zelira narrowed her eyes. "No reward, no orders, no benefit." "No," Theo said, "just life." The queen leaned forward, her glowing blue eyes locking with his. For a brief second, something flickered in her mind. A strange feeling. Like warmth. Like curiosity mixed with danger. She stood from her throne. Towering over him, her voice echoed like thunder. "You are strange, human," Theo nodded. "I've been told that before, for the first time." Queen Zelira did not laugh, she did not mock. She simply stared at him and then turned away. "Return to your room," she said quietly. But inside, her thoughts were no longer still. That night she couldn't sleep. She dreamed of the human, his calm eyes, his quiet voice, his strange strength that didn't come from muscle. It made her restless. She woke up in sweat, her heart beating fast. She looked at her hand. It trembled, just a little. What was happening to her? Why did this human stir something no warrior ever could? She clenched her fists. This was foolish, and yet she whispered into the darkness, the man who stayed behind. The Tharnak's Festival of Strength was about to begin. It happened once every 10 cycles. A sacred event where warriors showed their power and honored their ancestors. But this year there was a twist. For the first time in Tharnak's history, a human would be present. Theo had no idea what to expect. He stood awkwardly near the edge of the ceremonial chamber, his clothes neat but dusty. The walls were alive with energy, glowing veins of light running through dark stone. Massive drums echoed like thunder. Smoke rose from golden fires, making the air thick and heavy. Warriors danced in circles, their bodies glowing with paint that shimmered under strange lighting. Zelira stood at the center, taller, stronger, and more beautiful than any creature in the room. Her armor reflected the firelight, her body marked with bright red symbols that pulsed with heat. Theo had never seen anything like this, but he couldn't look away from her. She didn't smile, but her eyes glanced toward him once, briefly, sharply. Then she turned her back and stepped toward the sacred pedestal. One of the elders stepped forward, holding a staff carved from bone and crystal. He spoke in the old tongue, but a translator orb near Theo buzzed to life. "Let the queen choose her ritual partner," the voice translated. "Let her honor the bond of strength and curiosity." Theo frowned. "What ritual partner?" he whispered. The queen stepped forward and placed her hand on the glowing pedestal. A soft hum filled the air, and a circle of light formed around her. The room grew quiet, all warriors dropping to one knee. Then, without warning, the queen raised her arm and pointed, straight at Theo. He blinked, confused. Me? Gasps rippled through the crowd. The human? That was unheard of. Theo stepped back. Wait, what am I doing? He asked. A warrior behind him growled, Step forward, or dishonor the queen. Theo hesitated, but only for a moment. Then he stepped into the circle, standing across from her. Their eyes met. And for the first time she looked unsure. This is only symbolic, she said in a low voice. Say the words, place your hand and leave. Theo nodded slowly. But as he placed his hand on the pedestal opposite hers, the stone cracked with light. Not the soft blue of tradition, but a deep gold. Almost alive, a blast of warmth surged through them both. Theo stumbled but didn't fall. Zalira's eyes widened as her body pulsed with energy she didn't recognize. The pedestal began to glow brighter and brighter. Symbols rose from the stone and spun around them in the air. Some of the elders shouted, others backed away in fear. This is not normal. One growled, the ritual was never meant for humans. But it was too late. The energy wrapped around Theo and Zalira, binding them in a connection no one could break. Their minds brushed for a moment. Brief and intense, she saw his childhood. He saw her loneliness, she felt his fear. He touched her pride. Then the light vanished and silence returned. Theo dropped to his knees, breathing hard. Zalira stood frozen. Her heart pounding, she felt different. Her body was warm, her skin too sensitive, her heartbeat out of rhythm. She turned and left the chamber without a word. Everyone parted to let her through. No one dared speak. Later that night, Theo sat in his room, rubbing his temple. His skin still tingled. What was that? He whispered. The translator orb didn't answer elsewhere. Queen Zalira lay on her chamber bed. Her body trembled lightly. She had been through hundreds of rituals, but none had ever reacted like this. None had ever touched her mind. She looked at her hands, they were glowing faintly, and deep inside her something pulsed. She stood quickly, her breath short. She activated the royal med scanner. It scanned her body in seconds, then froze. Warning, unknown biological activity detected. Hybrid genetic markers found. Subject status early gestation phase 1. She stared at the words, unblinking. No, she whispered. This is not possible. She scanned again, same result. Her eyes widened as the truth hit her like a blast of cold air. She was pregnant and the father was human. Far across the palace, Theo sat up straight. He felt a sudden sharp pull in his chest, like something had just changed in the universe. He didn't know it yet, but his life was about to become very, very complicated. Queen Zalira locked the doors to her private chamber. Her tall frame leaned heavily against the wall, claws shaking. The scan still hovered in the air. Blinking red warnings, pregnancy confirmed. Hybrid detected, father. Human. She stared at the results, but her mind refused to accept them. It was a ritual, just a symbolic pairing. There was no contact, no joining, no... She clenched her jaw as the heat returned to her skin. The ritual had activated something ancient, something buried deep in Tharnak's genetics, something her ancestors had warned about but never believed would return. Impossible, she growled softly, but her hand went to her stomach anyway. There was nothing visible, no bump, no movement, and yet she could feel it, a quiet rhythm, not her own, pulsing faintly inside her. She shut off the scan and sat down slowly. Her breath was uneven, her heart was loud. She had never feared war, never flinched in battle. But this was something she could not command. Meanwhile, Theo worked in the lower lab, alone. He tried to focus on his research, organ structure of Tharnak's hatchlings. But his thoughts kept drifting back to the ritual. Something had passed between them. He felt it even now, a warmth in his chest. A strange connection, not love, not lust. Something deeper, like a tether. He rubbed the back of his neck and sighed. He didn't know if he had crossed a line, or if the line had moved. The Tharnaks were distant now. Even the younglings avoided him. They could sense something had changed. That night, Zalira did not sleep. She stood before the giant window of her chamber. Stars glittered in the sky like tiny eyes watching her. Was this a curse, or a message? Her mind drifted back to the human's voice. You've never tried. She had laughed then. Now she was marked, chosen. Carrying something no one in the galaxy would understand. Not fully Tharnax, not fully human something. New, by morning the Queen summoned her private medic, Dr. Zekra, a loyal healer who had served her for years, entered the chamber with caution. "My Queen?" she said, bowing deeply. "You will speak of this to no one," Zelira said coldly. She activated the scan, letting Zekra see the truth. The doctor froze, her mandibles twitching. This is not possible. "It is real," Zelira said. "Tell me what will happen." Zekra scanned again, carefully, slowly. "There is no record of such a combination," she whispered. "But the embryo is stable, it is growing." The Queen's jaw tightened. "And if others find out?" "They will demand its removal," Zekra said without emotion. "They will call it a threat, is it?" the Queen asked quietly. The doctor hesitated. "I do not know." Later that day, Theo was escorted without warning into the Queen's private hall. Guards stood tense at every door. He expected anger, maybe punishment. But what he saw was something else entirely. Zelira sat alone, her armor gone. She wore only a simple robe made from woven crystal fibers. Her hair was unbound, her expression unreadable. "You," she said, her voice low. "Come here." Theo approached, confused. "Is something wrong?" he asked. She stood, towering over him. "You did this," she whispered, placing his hand gently, yet firmly, on her lower abdomen. Theo's eyes widened. He could feel it, a faint vibration, a second heartbeat. "What? How?" he breathed. "The ritual," she said. "Something ancient awakened." Theo stepped back, stunned. "I didn't mean to." "I know," she interrupted. "No one meant this." There was a long silence. He looked up at her. "What will you do?" Zelira turned away, staring at the far wall. "The council must not know," she said. "They will demand I destroy it. They will call it impurity." Theo's hands trembled. "I won't let that happen." She turned back sharply, surprised. "You speak like it is yours." "It is," Theo said softly. "I may be small, weak by your standards, but I won't let them harm it." The Queen's eyes softened, just slightly. Something deep inside her shifted. Not just the child, but her own view of the human standing before her. He had no weapons, no armor, no power, and yet he had more courage than most Tharnax generals. That night, the Queen placed both hands on her stomach and whispered to the child, "I don't know what you are, but you are mine, and I will protect you." Outside the palace, the stars kept shining, but something new had begun. Something small, hidden, and growing stronger each day. A storm was coming, but not the kind with rain or thunder. This one wore armor. This one carried laws sharper than blades. News had leaked. No one knew how, but whispers began spreading like fire in dry grass. The mighty Queen of the Tharnax Empire was carrying something unnatural, a child from a human. The High Council of Tharnax summoned an emergency trial. All 13 elders draped in war robes met in the Tower of Verdict. They called it the Purity Hearing, but it was a warning, a message to the Queen. Even she had limits. Zelira stood before them without armor, without crown, but her presence still filled the chamber. Cold blue light shined on her face, and her hands rested calmly at her sides. Inside her, life moved, a flicker, a beat, a presence that no one else could feel, except perhaps the one who helped create it. Theo sat far in the back, surrounded by guards. Chains around his wrists, he had offered himself to come with her. He refused to let her face this alone. The head elder slammed his staff. "The child is forbidden," he growled. "No queen has the right to defy our biology." "It is not defiance," Zelira replied firmly. "It is evolution," another elder hissed. "This hybrid could be dangerous, unstable, infected with weakness." Theo stood up suddenly. "She is carrying life," he said. "Something that combines two worlds. Maybe it's not a threat, maybe it's a bridge." The guards tried to silence him, but Zelira raised her hand. "Let him speak," she said. Theo took a breath. "I didn't plan this," he said. "Neither did she. But it happened. And now there's a child growing inside her. A child who didn't ask to be born but still deserves a chance to live." The elders remained silent. Then one spoke slowly. "You are human, soft and brief. Your kind dies quickly and forgets even faster. Why should we risk everything for your seed?" Theo didn't flinch. "Because it's not just mine," he said. "It's hers too." That made the chamber fall silent again. Zelira stepped forward. "I have crushed worlds," she said. "I have conquered fleets, burned cities, but this This is the first thing I have ever created. One elder slammed the table. This ends now, he shouted. The queen must choose her throne, or the abomination inside her. The room froze. Even the guards stopped breathing. Theo turned pale. Zalira said nothing at first. Her eyes drifted down to her stomach, where the small heartbeat still fluttered inside her. Her claws slowly clenched. Then she raised her head and stepped forward. I choose, she said. Her voice was low, heavy with power. I choose my child, gasps filled the hall. Theo's eyes widened. The council members stood in shock. You would give up your throne? One hissed. Zalira took another step. I would give up everything, she said. For this one life. You shame the bloodline, a warrior spat. You invite war. Then let it come, she roared. Her body lit with deep red energy, her veins glowing. I will face it, I will stand against every army. And if the stars themselves fall, so be it. In that moment, Theo saw something no one else did. The Great Queen was no longer a symbol of fear. She was a mother, and she was ready to fight the entire galaxy to protect her unborn child. The council did not speak again, not with words. They activated an ancient sentence, exile. Later, in the shadow of the throne room, Queen Zalira stood before her army. She stripped off her crown, tossed it to the stone floor. I am no longer your queen, she said. I am something else now. Theo stood beside her. Wrists no longer chained, the guards did not stop them. No one dared. Together they walked through the long halls of the palace one last time. Not as ruler and prisoner, but as two lives bound by something stronger than law. By the time the sun rose over the jagged peaks of Tharnax Prime, they were gone into the stars, carrying a secret, carrying hope, and far behind them the Empire watched in silence, unsure whether they had just witnessed betrayal or the beginning of something new. The ship was old, slow, and nearly falling apart. But to Queen Zalira it felt like freedom. No guards, no council, no throne, only silence, and the soft sound of the human beside her breathing. Theo sat in the co-pilot seat. Carefully adjusting the broken controls, his fingers worked fast, trying to reroute life support to keep the engines from overheating. They had escaped with barely any supplies. No backup, no weapons, no protection. We'll make it to the outer moons, he said. Just a few more hours. Zalira didn't answer. She leaned back, her eyes closed. One hand resting on her belly, she wasn't used to weakness. But now, every movement, every jolt of the ship, sent pain through her spine. Her body was strong, built for war, but this, carrying a child not fully Tharnax, it was something her body didn't understand. She winced again, Theo noticed. You need to lie down, he said gently. I don't lie down, she muttered. But her voice had lost its usual sharpness. She was tired, and the child inside her was growing faster than anyone expected. They landed on a frozen moon, far from any trade routes. The surface was white and cracked like broken glass. Winds howled outside the ship. But inside the cave they found it was warm enough to survive. Theo built a small fire using leftover heat packs and a power core. He set up a med bed, patched from emergency parts and his field kit. Zalira lay down, breathing hard. Her skin glowed faintly in the dim light. Your body's fighting it, Theo said softly. I know, she replied. But it won't win. She reached for his hand. It was the first time she had done that without power or command. No orders, just quiet need. Theo knelt beside her. I've studied hundreds of species, he whispered. But I've never seen a queen become like this. Like what? She asked. He looked into her eyes. Vulnerable. She looked away. I don't like it, I do, he replied. Because it means you're alive, days passed. The wind outside never stopped, but the cave became their shelter. A broken-down heater, some dried protein rations, a flickering lamp, and inside that cold, quiet place, something warm began to grow. Zalira told stories of her past, battles she had fought, planets she had conquered. Theo listened, always with a smile, and when she asked him to speak, he told her about Earth, about oceans, birds, rain that smelled like joy, things she had never seen. One night, Zalira woke up screaming. Theo rushed to her side, her claws dug into the floor. Her back arched, she was burning, her body wasn't ready. It's too soon, Theo whispered, checking her vitals. Your system can't keep up. She gritted her teeth, eyes glowing. Then fix it, human. He nodded. He connected her to the med bed, reprogrammed the nanite injectors. Used human code mixed with Tharnax tech. It was messy, illegal, and dangerous, but it worked. The pain eased, the Queen exhaled later. As she lay in silence, she turned to him and whispered, "I was wrong about you," Theo chuckled. "Yeah. Most people are." "No," she said softly. "I thought you were weak. But you hold me together." Outside, the stars shifted. A Tharnax scout ship passed nearby. Didn't see them, didn't stop inside the cave. Zalira sat upright for the first time in days. Her eyes clearer, her body adjusting. The child was still alive, still growing, half human, half Tharnax. Impossible, yet real. She looked at Theo and said, "If they come for us again, you must run." "No," he said. "I won't leave." "You're not a warrior," she said firmly. He nodded. "No," he said. "I'm something worse. I'm a man who loves what he helped create." Zalira stared at him, her breath catching. She didn't understand that word. Love. But in that quiet moment she felt it, not in her head, but in the way her heart beat beside his. They were no longer queen and subject. No longer warrior and diplomat. They were just two beings in exile, holding on to a hope that refused to die. And somewhere in her womb, a future kicked softly, waiting to be born. The cave shook, dust fell from the ceiling. The heater blinked off and the wind outside screamed louder than before. Theo ran to the edge of the rock shelter. He looked up and froze. Lights, ships, Tharnax warships, black and massive, hovered above the frozen cliffs. Their engines hummed like growling beasts. Dozens of warriors dropped from the sky, armored, armed, and ready. "They've found us," he whispered. His hand trembled slightly as he stepped back. Behind him, Queen Zalira cried out in pain. She was on the floor of the cave, her body glowing, shaking. The child was coming, not later now. Theo rushed to her side. She was burning up. The hybrid child inside her was forcing its way into the world. "Too early, too fast, too powerful. Focus on breathing," Theo said, setting up the last of the medbay parts. Zalira grabbed his arm, her claws piercing his skin. "Don't let them take it," she whispered through clenched teeth. "I won't," he said. "I swear, outside." The warriors formed ranks. Their leader, a tall female named Commander Varnax, stepped forward. "By order of the High Council," she shouted. "Surrender the hybrid and the traitor." Theo turned to the cave mouth. He stood alone, blocking the entrance, unarmed, shaking, but unbroken. "You'll have to kill me first," he shouted. The commander laughed. "A human, standing against the Tharnax army?" From behind, Zalira's voice echoed like thunder. "No," she growled. "He is not alone." She rose to her feet, still glowing, her face filled with pain but also fire. Her body shook with effort. But she stood tall, one hand on her belly, one hand raised in warning. "You come for my child?" she said. "Then come and bleed." The Tharnax soldiers hesitated. They had never seen her like this, flesh glowing, skin cracked with gold light. She looked like a star in the shape of a queen. Commander Varnax lifted her weapon, but didn't fire. Instead, the ground shook again. This time, it wasn't the ships, it was something deeper. The child inside Zalira released a pulse. A wave of energy burst from the cave, gold and blue. It rippled through armor, air, and stone. The warriors stumbled back. The commander's rifle shattered in her hand. What is this?" she gasped. Inside, Zalira collapsed again. The child was coming, now unstoppable. Theo rushed to her side. He held her hand as she screamed. "You can do this," he whispered. "You're stronger than all of them." Tears burned at the edges of her eyes. Not from pain, but from something else. Something she had never felt before. Fear, hope, love. Then it happened. A final cry, a burst of light. And the child was born, small, glowing, breathing, skin smooth like Theo's. Eyes deep blue like Zalira's, but in those eyes, something more, not just human. Not just Tharnax, something entirely new. Theo held the child in his arms, stunned. He laughed through tears. "She's perfect," he whispered. Zalira reached out, touched her daughter's tiny face. "She's mine," she said, "and she's yours." Outside, the soldiers fell to their knees. The energy from the child had reached their minds, not as a command, but as a feeling. A warmth they didn't understand. The commander dropped her weapon and whispered, "It's beautiful." The soldiers lowered their rifles. Their battle rage melted, their fear replaced with awe. Zalira stepped out of the cave, the child in her arms, Theo beside her. Together, they stood before the army, not as fugitives, but as parents. "This," Zalira declared, "is the future." No one spoke. Not one dared raise a weapon again. The queen who once ruled through fear, now ruled through something greater. She had given life. And in doing so, she had changed everything. Years later, stories would spread across the galaxy of a human who tamed a warrior queen, of a queen who gave up everything to protect a child, and of a little girl, half human, half Tharnax, whose heartbeat united two worlds. She would grow up strong, fast, brilliant, loved by both species, a symbol of peace born in exile. And every time she asked, "Where did I come from?" Zelira would smile and say, "From a joke the galaxy laughed at until it became a miracle."